Welcome to AFibulous Life, Unlimited Conversation, the podcast where we explore what it really means to live, adapt, and thrive with atrial fibrillation. Hosted by Jim Kaveney, this is a space for real stories, expert insights, and honest conversations about heart health, resilience, and life beyond diagnosis, because AFib doesn't define you. And with the right support, your life can still be unlimited.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to AFibulous Life. Jim Kaveney here, your friendly AFib host, coming to you from Chicago. So I had the pleasure of being in Chicago the last couple of days. That's why the surroundings here, we're actually in the McCormick Center in Chicago, recording live. I was so excited to share some of this information with you, so I just wanted to get out, record it, and get this released as soon as possible. So here it is. I'm in Chicago. It's the 47th Annual Heart Rhythm Society meeting. It is the biggest gathering in the world for doctors, nurses, and researchers who specialize in your heartbeat. They're electrophysiologists, right? More than 10,000 people were here this week from over 90 countries, all in one place to talk about how we keep hearts beating in rhythm and how we keep them beating, period. Lots of discussions this week, lots of unique things. I can't cover it all in this one session, but I'm going to capture some of the key highlights for you as we go through this session today. So I want to walk you through a little bit of what I think is honestly and really what matters most to everyday people, not just doctors, right? So I'm going to keep out and skip out the jargon and just tell you what's new, what it means, and why we should care as individuals. So let's start with the heart rhythm problem most people have heard of, right? Which is AFib. That's what we're talking about, because here at the conference, AFib tends to get the largest presence here because it's the number one arrhythmia in the world, right? So it should get the most attention. It's causing the most problems, and I'm going to share with you a little bit about that. So let's, for those of you that might be joining us that maybe don't know what AFib is when the upper chambers of the heart, okay, your atria, when the upper chambers of your heart quiver. So they quiver at a high rate instead of beating in steady rhythm with your ventricles, which are the lower parts of your heart. So it's the most common heart rhythm problem in the world. More than 40 million patients have it across the globe. And it dramatically raises your risk for stroke, heart failure, and other serious complications. So coming out of this, here's headline number one, and this one is big because there's something else that everybody's already aware of and everybody's talking about in addition to this, is there was a new study presented this week in Chicago that found that the popular weight loss medications, GLP-1s, which everybody's hearing all about, the Ozempic and Wegovy family, appear to lower people's risk of developing AFib. Now this is a big study, right? So researchers looked at more than 13,000 patients, and the protective effect held up even after accounting for the weight loss itself. Now, just a little bit of a caveat. And I'm not a scientist, but I will tell you this. So this was a retrospective. So what that means is they looked in rears, they looked behind. Once the patients had GLP-1s, once they had taken the GLP-1s, what was the outcome of those patients? So it wasn't a prospective trial, meaning it wasn't being studied as it went along. So I just wanted to clarify that for you. So when they looked at these 13,000 patients, they found the protective effect, even after accounting for weight loss itself. That's huge. So in other words, this means these medications seem to be doing something for the heart that goes beyond just helping people lose those pounds. So that's intriguing. So what is it? How is it impacting? We don't know just yet. We don't fully understand the mechanism, and I'm not a scientist, so I'm not going to try to extrapolate what that could be. But this is pretty impressive. So for a condition that impacts 40 million people worldwide and causes more than a half a million hospitalizations a year just in the United States. This is a costly situation, something that needs to be addressed, and we're excited that these new developments are coming out. So this is truly a meaningful finding. So let's take a look at headline number two. And this one I want you to remember, because this one is truly, no pun intended, or pun intended, near and dear to my heart. So the Heart Society came out with a major statement saying this week that lifestyle is no longer optional in treating AFib. It's foundational. So no longer optional, it's foundational. So what does that mean? So it means that things like we already know matter. Managing your weight, sleeping well, treating your sleep apnea, controlling your blood pressure, moving your body, watching the alcohol consumption, and not smoking. These aren't nice to-dos alongside the medication and procedures. These are have to-dos. Not to say that you can't imbibe periodically, all right? Because you might want to have a glass of wine or something like that, but find a way to find your balance as well. But these things are core. They are the core pillar alongside the medications and the procedures to what you're going through. But here's what the statement is truly honest about. They admitted that even though everyone agrees that lifestyle matters, almost nobody in the healthcare system is actually delivering this care to patients because it's difficult. Why? For 3 reasons. 1, the system is fragmented. It's logistically hard to coordinate. And, most importantly, insurance doesn't really pay for it. That's the gap. And it's exactly the gap that we are doing at Unlimited Heart, as well as Nudge Health, our partners, in trying to close that gap. We've figured it out, and we're working on that, and we actually had great conversations this week with healthcare systems, providers, about how do we help utilize the systems that we've created for integrating lifestyle into what they're doing on the medical and the procedure side. This is all great news coming out of this. So when I tell you this is a very validating situation, I truly mean it, right? So the statement also points out from Heart Rhythm Society that digital tools, so apps, wearables like your watch, all of these things are going to be a part of it. Virtual coaching as ways to scale these kinds of lifestyle care so people can use it. This is a holistic approach. This is not one thing works best for everybody. It's all of these things need to be incorporated. Whole person care, holistic approach. All right, let's take a look at that with that segue at really headline number 3, and that's the technology side. There's a treatment for AFib called ablation, which I talked about, right, a little bit. I'm going to explain that a little bit more here. So ablation is where doctors use a catheter to gently scar the areas of the heart tissue that are firing off the wrong electrical signals. Now, I personally went through 2 radiofrequency ablations, and those radiofrequency ablations uses heat to carve out those areas. There's also a cryoablation, which uses cold to freeze that tissue. So those have been done for decades and still with a lot of success. But now there's this newer approach, which has been out for about a little over a couple years now, called pulse field ablation. And the data on the pulse field ablation continues to get richer. But instead of using heat or cold, like I mentioned earlier, it uses short bursts of electrical energy. So it tends to be safer for the surrounding tissue. And the meeting this week formalized for the first time a global consensus statement on how it should be used. So this, moving forward, is really going to shape how AFib gets treated for the next decade or so until the next great thing comes. So there was also new data on the related approach for harder to treat AFib patients. So let's assume that you've been a little bit more difficult to treat, and that's okay. It's not your fault. There's now a hybrid procedure that combines a minimally invasive surgical approach from the outside of your heart with a catheter-friendly approach from the inside. So the Society came out and released a best practice guide for that this week. So for people who have had AFib for a long time, who haven't gotten relief from the standard treatments, this truly does provide real hope. Now there's also a couple quick ones I want to get out here too. So artificial intelligence. Nobody can't talk about, it's like AI, you can't talk about AI, or you can't talk about, or go into a conversation without talking about AI or a GLP-1, right? So now AI is officially a part of the toolkit. So the Society released a framework for how AI can be safely integrated into heart rhythm care for helping doctors read scans and procedures in real time. This is amazing, right? So doctors are great. Like, the doctors can't do this alone, but AI can't do it alone either. We need people integration with this. We need all of things to come together in order to increase the efficacy and the efficiency of what we're doing to treat these patients. Let's talk quickly a little bit about anticoagulation. And that simply means, how do we keep our blood thin so we don't have strokes or other complications from that? We don't want to throw out any blood clots or anything. Particularly what happens after ablation. So when you go through your procedures. So that's the question of whether or not patients need to stay on blood thinners forever after a successful ablation or a procedure. So new trial data is suggesting that for carefully selected patients, emphasizing carefully selected patients, the answer might be no. And that stopping blood thinners can actually mean fewer bleeding complications without raising stroke risk. That conversation is going to keep evolving, but it is shifting. But if you have any of those questions, you need to ask your healthcare provider. By no means is this medical advice from me. This is me just kind of conveying what are some of the news that has come out of this. And so that's an important thing, because as part of your life and a part of your quality of life, sometimes being on a blood thinner can cause issues. I was on blood thinners multiple times, so I understand the challenges and the tribulations that go along with that. So providing you this information is to make you aware so that you can have these informed conversations with your healthcare providers. And then lastly, which is something else that I really truly love, is that this week the Heart Rhythm Society spent some time doing CPR and defibrillatory training for the city of Chicago. And this is important because back in New Hampshire, I've done this with my student athletes in New Hampshire, students helping students, saving lives. And this is a big deal because we understand when somebody goes through cardiac arrest or somebody collapses, this sudden cardiac arrest kills hundreds of thousands of Americans each year. We can stop that if people nearby know how to do it. So that's why it's really important that people go out and get trained on how to use a defibrillator. They're pretty straightforward, but also how to use hands-only CPR, because it's not necessary to do mouth-to-mouth anymore. Hands-only compressions can save a life. I actually was a part of a conversation this morning where this physician, not an electrophysiologist, got up. He was an eye doctor, got up and explained how he went through his own cardiac arrest, and his wife provided hands-only CPR for 10 minutes to save his life. That's how important it is. Everybody can have an impact on somebody else. So stay informed, get trained on how to do it, and save somebody hopefully you don't get into that situation, but if you do, you can save somebody's life. So here's the takeaway, one sentence I want you to walk away with from today's session, a little quick podcast for today, is that the future of heart rhythm care isn't just getting better procedures and better drugs, it's getting better integration of those procedures and drugs with things that can actually drive heart disease in the first place. How we live, how we eat, move, sleep, and manage stress. That's the direction of this entire field. And the work we're doing, what we're trying to do with whole person care, this conversation with you today, through education, through partnership, through community, we're truly trying to inform you so that you can become a center of excellence unto yourself. You can't do it alone. That's why we're building this community together. So I'm going to call it a night tonight here in Chicago. The sun is setting. I'm going to go and relax. It's a great day. I'm going to recap all this stuff in my mind and think about how we can apply this moving forward. But until then, I wish you a great day, a great night. Stay unlimited. And then to the next time, to the next podcast, which, by the way, will be probably Monday or Tuesday, or later on next week as I recap the following 2 days of what's happening here at Heart Rhythm Society. I'm not going to be present, but I will be able to recap all this for you as well. In the meantime, take care, and thanks for joining me. And this is Jim Kaveney at AFibulous Life.